Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first meeting in March for West Perth Council. Just before we get started in our agenda tonight, I just want to make reference to the passing of Mrs. Colthart, who is Alex's grandmother, passed away last week, and also Ron Creamer formerly of Fullerton Township. Ron and Nancy were Citizens of the Year for I believe it was Mitchell, maybe West Perth. I guess it would be West Perth a number of years ago. So just before we start our meeting, then we'll have a moment of silent reflection and we can maybe remember those families in our thoughts. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll officially call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No, we're good. Okay. So then the first item of business then would be that the Council of Municipality of West Perth accept the agenda as presented. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor O'Donnell, second by Councillor Phelps. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? Okay, if you find, as I say, if you find you treading hot water later on in the meeting, just declare it at that time. We do have a number of items on the consent agenda. We have 8, as a matter of fact. Is there anything there that anybody would like pulled or dealt with separately? Councillor Fournier?
Item 4.6, not 4.6, the 4.5, support for Bill 21, Protect Our Food Act. The bill is actually a pretty short read, and it seems to be in favor of the sorts of things that Perth County itself is in favor of, preserving agriculture, preserving our heritage here as a community that way. So anything that we can do to protect agricultural land from being rezoned for other uses would seem to be something that we're automatically in support of. I would love to hear if anyone else has comments on the particular bill. I thought it was quite interesting.
Okay, so you did say 4.5 and 4.6?
Just 4.5.
Just 4.5, sorry. Okay, all right. Is there anything else that anybody would like clarification on? Okay, let's deal with 4.5 then, if you wish. Andrew's kind of indicated his response to that. I don't know if you have anything further to add. Okay, so you would like to move that we support that one. Okay, do we have a seconder for that one? Councillor Foster. Okay, discussion. Deputy Mayor Trnkowski.
Thanks, Your Worship, through you. This was discussed at Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. There was questions about concern about the ambiguity of Bill 21. Wasn't clearly defined what the overall objectives were going to be, how this would concern about the impact. Yes, Councillor Fournier makes a good point that this, in theory, aligns with Perth County principles protecting agriculture, but bearing in mind that anywhere that might be future development would be on farmland. So the concern at Western Wardens Caucus is that this could overcomplicate the ability for individual municipalities to exercise their planning ability and planning authority according to their corresponding official plan that they have in each municipality or each county. So Western Wardens decided to defer any further decision on that, supporting that bill until more information came back from staff. So as much as I would like to support Bill 21 at this point, I feel there would be a need for more information that would need to come forward before I could give it my support. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Any further discussion on that? I guess we go ahead, Councillor Fournier.
In light of new information, I'd like to retract my suggestion. That would be like a pamphlet arguing with a textbook, and I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay, like other option is that we could bring it back at a future meeting if we get some more information. That would be not out of line to do that if you wish. So I'm gonna look to James here. Do we leave 4.5 in the mix and just accept the consent agenda?
Through the chair, the mover signaled that they're okay to withdraw the motion, so provided the seconder is okay with that, I think you can take it out and, like you said, deal with it
So
together.
we'll just leave it right out.
4.5 back in and
You put
into
it
the
back
mix.
into
and
the
you can
mix.
Receive it as information.
Okay, all
At
right.
this time, you take.
Counselor Foster's okay with that? Okay, good. All right. So then the motion is there, well, I guess I'll just clarify, is there anything else that anybody wants clarification on? Okay, so then the motion would read that West Perth accept the consent agenda items 4.1 to 4.7 for information and the minutes of the February 17th, 2026 regular meeting be adopted. So do we have a mover and seconder for that? Counselor Duck, Counselor Fournier. Any further discussion? Last chance. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Good. We don't have any public meetings per se this evening, but we do have a couple delegations. Or I call them delegations. Anyways, I guess we could call them presentations. So the first one is to do with our investment policy. And I'm going to ask Nick Poulos to come up from CIBC Wood Gundy. And I have to admit, I'm very disappointed that we didn't get any gummy bears tonight. He was handing out gummy bears at the Roma conference. So the floor is yours. So go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor McKenzie and Council for having me this evening. And I promise next time I'm here, I will bring some along for the ride then. So
We would prefer higher interest really though.
there you go. Right. You can't have it all. Right. Exactly. So excellent. Well, like I said, thank you for the opportunity to help present a refreshed investment policy for your consideration and kind of not only that, but also help provide also an introduction to myself, our team, kind of what we do to help work with over 90 municipalities across the country, and then ultimately hand it over to Treasurer McMurray to finish the conversation. So, so really quickly, just to kind of begin, our team and kind of our area of expertise. Sorry, moving to slide one. My apologies. Yeah, thank you. In terms of our leadership in the space, and so been working with municipalities across the country for over 40 years. Currently work with over 90, overseeing over $4.25 billion of public funds. And so I think for us, the main advantage and main opportunity that we offer a lot of our clients is this concept of shared economics of economies of scale and expertise in that space. And so you have over $4.25 million of public funds. And so on behalf of the municipality of West Perth, it's the ability to partake in those shared economies of scale when we're calling out on your behalf to get you the best rate possible for every single dollar that we're helping you invest. And so that it's being done at the best rate that we can get our hands on. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor. Oh, you had it. I thought you were, okay. My apologies. And last but not least, it's, obviously we're an affiliated party of CIBC parent bank that I know the municipalities had a longstanding banking relationship with. And so we see ourselves as also being backed by the collective backing and security of CIBC Bank as well. So that's the team right here. It's myself and two other senior investment advisors that work with our over 90 municipalities that we work with. And it's really just, you can see that when it comes to public sector investing, it's our area of expertise. It's all that we do. If it's not municipalities, it's other publicly funded names, hospitals, school boards, things of that nature. And so it's a full team around client service and administration, as well as research and analytics that are catered towards servicing the needs of folks like yourself. So moving forward. So the investment policy that we're considering this evening, and I think, sorry, moving forward to the next slide. In terms of, why it is essential and why it's up for consideration this evening is first and foremost, it's a requirement as per the Municipal Act that if the municipality is going to be investing money, outside of being in a bank account, that there needs to be a policy in place to help govern that process. And so that's really what we're here to do is help provide you with an update to that policy and just add some additional rigor, some additional parameters, and also make sure that it's up to speed in terms of including the most recent piece of legislation that would help drive that process. And so that's really what this is all about. It's providing a nice, solid framework to help guide these conversations. We talk about mitigating, our own personal biases of council, biases of the finance staff. We saw obviously what happened over the weekend, and it's right that you would come in this morning and be checking the paper, checking the news to see how things have responded. And really it's the goal of the policy here to have things in place so that we're not making these types of emotional decisions, and that there's a plan in place that helps guide, that's tied towards the long-term investment strategy and the goals and the objectives of the institution. And last but not least, it's ensuring that from a governance and ethics standpoints that we're making sure that, the highest degree is incorporated into the policy so that it's being upheld to the highest standard possible. So we often say that when it comes to, investing public dollars and in municipal investing in general, it's not about beating the market. We always often refer to it as something, an acronym known as the SLY principle. And for us, when we look at investing money on behalf of the municipality, it's first and foremost, it's safety. You're investing public dollars, preservation of capital is paramount. We can't afford to lose these funds. And thankfully, we've been in business for over 40 years, and we've never had a recorded loss on an investment that we made on behalf of a municipality across the country. And so that's upwards. That's the most important, attribute that we're trying to make sure that we upheld. Last but not least, moving forward is liquidity. The money needs to be there when you need it, and being invested for the appropriate term to ensure that there aren't losses incurred and that things are liquid and that they're there for the municipality when they're needed to be drawn upon. And last but not least, it's obviously, like Mayor McKenzie was saying, is the rate of return, the yield that we're earning on these investments. We always view that as being, last. Obviously, it's a very important consideration, but only after we've met the requirements of safety principle and ensuring that the portfolio is liquid and as liquid as needed as per the requirements of the municipality and the liquidity constraints of the institution. So, moving forward. So why the update? And from having conversations with Treasurer McMurray and the rest of the finance staff on kind of what helped bring this about was really just involving and incorporating a couple of both external and internal factors that we feel it would necessitate the update at this point. So first and foremost was to ensure that the recent regulatory change, and I say recent, I think for a lot of us, the last 5 years have flown by, whether it be COVID and just life in general. But there was an update that came about in 2018 that was effective as of Jan 1 of 2019. And there's making sure that update to the legal list was incorporated in terms of, the policy that would be put forth this evening. Second, and this is from our perspective in terms of adding some additional rigor around risk management and other professional oversight, is just ensuring that we allow for additional diversification, making sure that the risk tolerance of the institution is more broadly defined. And last but not least, having some additional internal controls added to make sure that, again, that the process is as airtight as possible, and that from a risk management standpoint, we're doing the best of our ability to ensure that the dollars are being invested in accordance. And last but not least, the market environment. Things are constantly changing. Rates are moving up, down, sideways. Municipal costs are obviously been skyrocketing over recent years. And there's always, changes when it comes to, investment products and ensuring that those products are being incorporated. So from our perspective, it's making sure that those options are included if they're, suitable for the municipality to consider, and just making sure that you have as much flexibility as possible in the investment process. Moving forward. So my apologies. In terms of regulatory compliance, I spoke to that update that came out in 2018 and was effective as of Jan 1/19. There's 4 overarching amendments or changes that we want to incorporate in the policy. The first being there was a reduction of the minimum rating on a debt security longer than 2 years. That was reduced from AA low down to A low. And so from our perspective, whether or not we choose to buy those investments or not, the reality is they are available for your consideration. So it's just a matter of making sure that that language is incorporated in the policy to give the municipality as many options as possible for your consideration if and when it makes sense to do so. The second one was the authorization to beginning including US denominated investments in the portfolio, where we see other like-minded municipalities considering those investments would be capital purchases, fire trucks that are in US dollars, rather than just waking up at some time in the future, converting Canadian dollars into US and making those payments. If there's opportunities right now, given where the currency rate may be, to go ahead and take advantage of an opportunity to convert Canadian funds into US funds, you could then go ahead and take those US funds and actually invest them in a security that would meet the minimum rating requirements as per the overarching IPS, the investment policy statement. And it just gives you some additional flexibility when you're making those larger US denominated capital purchases. The third point was about the required sale of investments. In the past, there was kind of a steadfast rule that if an investment was ever downgraded, so let's say, one of the big five institutions saw downgrading in their investment credit rating, that, the municipality, assuming they held that investment, would have about 180 days of which they would have to divest themselves from that investment to bring them back on side and in compliant with the legislation. That language is now changed, and now it gives you a little bit more room to be strategic in terms of how you exit out of that security if and when there ever is a downgrade. And last but not least, the language around working with credit unions. There's lots of our municipalities we work with that have, credit unions locally, and they want to potentially, purchase their GICs or have deposits with those institutions. Again, there was changes to the act in 2018, and it's now changed the landscape in terms of how they go about and work with those unions moving forward. In terms of risk management oversight, we often say that, when it comes to risk management oversight, it's the brakes of this investment, vehicle on behalf of the municipality. It doesn't stop it from happening or stop us from investing, but it makes sure that we're doing so at a safe speed with the proper parameters in place. Some of the recommended changes that we made were around diversification limits in terms of percentage limits that can be invested in any single institution. And so with us at CIBC Wood Gundy having open architecture at our disposal, what that effectively means is not only are we sourcing CIBC issued investments, we have the ability, like I said, to call on all the big five banks directly and purchase investments in those institutions. So it's ensuring that we're effectively spreading the dollars around and they're being invested in securities backed by multiple issuers. Even additional credit quality constraints around limits on how much can be invested. So how much we want to have invested in Schedule I banks, issues, bonds or other debentures issued by the provinces or upper tier municipalities, things of that nature, putting some additional controls in place. Around internal controls, it was adding kind of an additional layer around, the ability to go ahead and provide approval to proceed with investments. Now having, it now be approved by 2 senior staff members of the municipality, the Director of Finance Treasurer, the Deputy Treasurer, and the CAO are all 3 now actively involved in the process. And in order for us to move forward, we now require 2 of them to be on board with a recommendation. And last but not least, it was adding the CFA Code of Ethics and Standards, which we view as being kind of the gold standard in the investment community, as kind of an overarching level of code of ethics that is now being applied to make sure that, whether it be ourselves or someone else that's overseeing the investment process, that they're upholding it to the highest standard possible. So in terms of, from your perspective, kind of key takeaways to consider here is, the whole point of this process is to transform, which could be potentially, not necessarily a guessing game, but it's important to know that when we're investing money, that it's being done in a prudent manner as per clearly defined principles and clearly defined, allocations or risk tolerance buckets, ensuring that it becomes a pretty boring, predictable exercise where things are being effectively, T's are being crossed, I's are being dotted in terms of making sure that we're doing everything we can possible to ensure that that first principle is being upheld, which is safety of principle. It was incorporating these regulatory compliance changes that we had talked about. Again, the risk management oversight that we had talked about. Whether it be at the end of the day, this is really all about economic stability and hopefully increased revenue on behalf of the municipality to enjoy for years to come. And last but not least, from a monitoring standpoint, we typically, would recommend an annual review. And so we would work closely with staff to providing kind of an annual review, an annual update to the policy, just to ensure that nothing's changed, that the risk tolerance of the municipality hasn't changed, that market dynamics haven't changed, or that legislation hasn't changed, and that if it has, to make sure that that is being incorporated in the policy on an annual basis. So, and I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Bink?
Mayor McKenzie, do you want questions now about the policy or specifically to a CIBC?
I believe, Wendy, you're gonna address the policy a little bit more in depth. So let's just stick with the questions for the presentation.
Sure. Then, through you, Mayor McKenzie, I was wondering if you could just speak to the fees that might be borne by the municipality for your services. Because that wasn't outlined anywhere, I don't think, in the report or the policy.
No, and that's an excellent question, right? Obviously, everyone that's providing investment advice, there's a fee associated with that advice that we're providing. And so typically what we would say here is it's a very rules-based transactional approach where there's a fee that's charged on the purchase of any investment that we buy on behalf of the municipality. In terms of the actual specific amount that we charge the municipality for the fees or the investments that we're purchasing, just given the nature, the sensitivity nature and the I guess the intellectual property assigned to our pricing structure as a group, as an institution, we typically prefer to have those types of conversations in camera if possible to ensure that that proprietary information isn't then leaked to the greater public. So happy to have that conversation if needed, but at this point, that's how I would address that. So it is very rules based though, and it's formulaic in that sense. And it's very much, industry standard. We're often very successful winning, RFPs or other kind of joint bids where that pricing is tested. And so we're very confident in the attractiveness of the pricing and the corresponding value that's generated on behalf of the municipality. So.
Never hurts to ask. Any other questions at this time? Councillor Duck.
I'm just kind of curious about the US based investing. I was kind of throwing some questions at the clerk, but just maybe if you could just touch on that a little bit more. I know we're in an era of, buying local where we can and buying Canadian, and I would just kind of like a bit more of an understanding on that if you could. Thank you.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Duck. So great question. So the way that we typically would recommend that is, so all the Canadian banks all issue US paying bonds. So they'll actually access the US debt market and issue a bond in US currency. So very, very rarely, if at all, are we ever recommending the actual purchase of a US security per se, backed by a US institution. More often than not, the way that we would check that box is the same way that we would make a recommendation to buy a CIBC investment in Canadian dollars. We're now just buying a CIBC investment in US dollars. And that's kind of the overarching, say, loophole, but that would be our recommendation in terms of how we would pursue that type of investment. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. I think, Wendy, you're going to come up and follow up here at this time then?
That's right. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate
You're-
everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Hopefully there's no feedback. I don't have any devices attached to my laptop, so we'll go with that. So the policy, as Nick said, is a lot of legislative updates and a lot of just making it clear on roles and responsibilities within the policy. I think as far as kind of frameworking where we've been and what brought us here is to help us to the next step of long-term financial planning. So getting this block in place opens the door for us to make the next block once we are there. So it puts all the framework for us there. As far as the policy itself, definitely there was collaboration between Wood Gundy and other municipalities to come up with the policy. Kind of looked at best practices, wanted to make it applicable and easy to follow. And then as far as how we're structured, so our short term or our cash we get a good rate of return. So there's no point in moving it to a GIC if we're already making that or better on our cash. So we've kind of been slow to move into the investment world. But now as we have these blocks in place, we're at a good time to maybe look at more long-term investing. So that's why we brought in Wood Gundy, because their focus is more on long-term than short-term, but they can certainly help with the short-term. Also in the policy, we have the business, government business enterprise, which is Earth. So we covered that in there. And then your trust funds are either through bank accounts or they're administered through the Office of the Public Guardian. And so those are your funds and where they're located. If there's any specifics on the policy, I'd happy to go through with you guys with that. I think for me, the biggest thing on the policy was legislation and then the rules and responsibilities. If there's any questions, I'd gladly take them.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Questions? Start with Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie, through you. Wendy, there in section 6.1, it talks about the guidelines for investment that if they change, then you'd report back to council. Maybe could I suggest that it be the opposite way around, that rather if we're going to change the investment guidelines, shouldn't that go to council first? But before just changing them and then reporting back, that it actually be the opposite.
I guess for that, it follows the legislation. So if we were invested already into something and the rating changed, then we would have that work plan to put us back into place. So currently we are 100% within the policy. We don't have anything outside of it. And so during our annual review, if there's something that does show up, then we would create an exit plan. So if it had a 5-year maturity, what that would look like. And so the update would come, we would disclose that, hey, there was a change in the rating and this is our plan.
Okay.
Are you thinking if,
I just wasn't clear that if that's all that it's referring to and not rather to the investment guidelines as a whole, then I understand. But I thought it was referring to like doing this periodic review of investment guidelines as a whole. And if we're going to change certain weights, being in like Councillor Duck suggested, more or less US based, that maybe that might come to council first before just changing the guidelines and more heavily invested in US as an example, and then just report back that if we're changing how the investment is executed, then I think that should come here first before changing it and then reporting back.
so you're referring to the portfolio itself in kind of seeing what's in the portfolio?
Yes, because that was laid out. So I just wasn't sure through you again, Mary, that this section 6.1 that talks about just reporting back to a council after it changes, if that's referring to the whole portfolio or just some specific sections. So that's maybe where I am unclear.
Yeah, sorry. If you look at Appendix A and Appendix B, it talks about the rating and it talks about our maximum portfolio. So we could just say, for example, we had a portfolio and we knew we were maybe on the B. Yeah, like maybe on B, there's credit unions there. And we may find at the end of the year, we're 11% and we should only be 10%. And then it would be, we got to move 1% out. So we're not quite there yet. We just are basically have the policy, and the only investment we have right now is the wastewater and then the business government enterprise. And so this is your guideline between where your operating funds are, which is Appendix A, and then your reserve funds, which are more long-term, is Appendix B. So the way that works is if something, when we do our review, we're not within those parameters, we create a plan to get it to match and then report back. So it's not necessarily a portfolio.
I understand now. I thought how it read was that we would be, that you could be changing the investment percentages maxed in the portfolio and then report back after you have changed it. But I'm with you now.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Duck?
With the three, like you and the deputy treasurer and the CAO, if somebody were to go off or there was absence or whatnot, does somebody else revert to that? Or if there's somebody that comes in to take over a position, like how do those roles work if somebody's off or gone or, leave or something like that?
Well, if they're on leave, there would be another person filling that position, so then that person would be that position. It should always be three. If we find three is not enough, we'll amend the policy and include a fourth.
Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, we do have a recommendation here then, if there's no further questions. The recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth approve corporate policy FIN 007 being the investment policy. I'll take a mover and seconder for that. You wish? Moved by Councillor Duck, second by Councillor Rose. Last call for questions. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thanks, Wendy. So the next one is our fourth quarter variance report.
So this report is written in a point in time, so a lot has changed since this report was written, but needless to say, we're still in a good position. So I'll just quickly run through some of the highlights. If you have specific questions on departments, I'd be gladly to go through them. But overall, the wages and benefits corporately, we were approximately 6% remaining, meaning that we had approximately $400,000 left to spend in wages. So we're going to look at fine tuning that as we go through the budget process. And we definitely saw in the part-time was where some of those variants showed up, and it could just be seasonal and stuff like that. So we're doing some analysis on the back end, but 6% is pretty good, over almost $7 million. And then I'll try and explain the capital projects. It's a tricky one. So when we do our budgets, we're on a cash basis, but all our books are under the accrual method or PSAB requirements. And so we make this entry to what we call 9,000 series department. So essentially it's a credit to your expense. So the capital, let's say it's $1 million. We budget $1 million, but we're putting 900,000 on the books for an asset, is that it translates in these reports. So it can really, you have to really know how to unpack that a little bit to read the variance. And so in the variance report, the 4.461 million includes 2.866 million in those entries. And so essentially it's showing, it's putting a credit there. So hopefully that explains it. It's a hard concept to get across, but that's our world. But overall, I would say our capital was low. When we last ran the report, I think we had only, we had 60% remaining. Let me just find my spot. All right. Yeah, we'd only spent 60% of our capital budget. So when we looked at that, we definitely have a lot of carry forwards, and that was addressed during the budget process. Some projects we didn't spend as much, so we didn't need as many dollars. So yeah, that was a big, I guess, adjustment we're noticing in the capital side, is try not to put more projects on the books than we can do, because it creates a lot of entry and monitoring for us, and then you have to come up here and tell you we only spent 60%. So we're trying to fine tune those. On the operating side, some of the pressures were your winter maintenance. Definitely went over budget. Again, that's seasonal. There's a graph in the report that shows seasonally we have been under budget. In this particular 25 season, we were over. And so now we have this trend line built. We'll just continue it and monitor it that way. So high seasons and low seasons, and we'll see kind of how we bring in a budget to be able to support a higher winter for costs. I think overall we had a lot of either extra revenue, so more either user fees overall. We had under expenditures, which all are favorable, but we did have some overages, and the winter maintenance is one, and the other is your storm, which I hope to speak with our insurance company this week or next to give you a report on that. But the report has a lot of detail, and I'm happy to go through it if there's any specific questions. So yeah, overall, I think we're in good shape. These numbers don't reflect necessarily what our surplus will be once we do all our accounting entries and our financial statements are prepared. Probably looking around June to get June, July. We'll have a surplus deficit report come at that point. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. I think best description of a budget, it's really an estimate, and especially when you're talking about roads and operations and snow removal, especially this year. So, questions for Wendy on the quarter variance? No questions? Okay. We do have a recommendation here then. And the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth receives the 2025 fourth quarter variance report for information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Fournier. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thanks, Wendy. All right, the next item is, I guess, the Clerk's Department. And we have a report here for the Seabock Branch B Municipal Drain. And we do have Streamline Engineering here tonight to go over that report. So I will turn the meeting over to you.
We're good now? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so you got the presentation up there. I'll just maybe tell you next slide when I'm ready. Thank you, Mayor McKenzie and Council. My name is Cody Kipfer, and with me is Trevor Kipfer. We are with Streamline Engineering Inc., based out of Milverton, Ontario. We appreciate and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and providing services for the municipality of West Perth. We were appointed in May of 2025 to provide an enclosure on the Seabock B drain on Lot 8, Concession 3 in the Fullerton Ward. The map on the left of the screen there shows that this project is located southeast of Mitchell, and the picture on the right is an example of the existing channel on the property. An initial on-site meeting and survey for the project was completed on June 5th, 2025. Following the on-site meeting, a survey, design, cost estimate for the project were completed. We met with John Van Ness on January 26th, 2026 to discuss cost and design options. Next slide, please. Based on our investigations and discussions with John, the final proposed design includes 145 meters of channel deepening, 455 meters of 21-inch municipal drain tile, 530 meters of existing channel to be enclosed, and other miscellaneous works as specified. Next slide, please. Project cost. Construction is estimated to be $126,600. Allowances, $600. Engineering and construction administration process, $35,000, and miscellaneous costs such as printing, net HST and interest charges, $9,800. The total project cost is estimated to be $172,000. All these costs are to be assessed to the property where the proposed enclosure is located. Because this property involves the enclosure of an existing municipal drain, no grants from OMAFA are applicable. Thank you for your time. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Questions from council? No questions at all. I guess the one thing I noticed in there that the work can't do or can't happen until after July the 15th. And so, there's a relatively small window in there to do this type of work, isn't there,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that outline is from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't help that.
Makes it a little harder for the contractors,
Yeah,
but
no, fair enough. If there are no questions, then recommendation that we have here is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth accepts the report dated February the 3rd from Streamline Engineering for the Seabock B drain enclosure, and that council provisionally adopt the engineer's report for the Seabock B drain enclosure by giving first and second reading to bylaw 21, 2026, and that the quarter revision for the Seabock B drain enclosure be scheduled for April the 7th, 2026. Moved by Councillor Harold, seconded by Councillor Foster. Last call for questions. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. The next is CAO's report on the wayfinding plan and the ROD program, Rural Ontario Development. Dan, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. So before you tonight, it's kind of maybe a two-pronged approach. One is really to get your feedback on the wayfinding sign design and location plan. So we are bringing that forward to council for your comment. As indicated in the report, it's kind of stemmed from the First Impressions tour was a big recommendation that came out of there with a partnership with Park Hill, driven through the Economic Development Committee. It was budgeted for in 2025 and got the plan in front of Economic Development Committee and got the go ahead to bring it to council for your review and feedback. So that's maybe part one. Part two is a bit of a disclosure on the Rural Ontario Development Program, or ROD. So as you may recall, at first we had hopes that this grant would be applicable to our arena project. It was one of our delegations at Roma. After meeting with staff prior to Roma, it was kind of, we were getting some soft impressions that it's only for cultural significant type of facilities. So really our approach at Roma was to push that, well, this is significantly relevant to the culture of West Perth. It's the community center as well as the arena, and gets used throughout the full year. It's not just an arena by any means. So we had that meeting, and then following that meeting, there was an announcement made that no recreation facilities were going to be eligible for the grant. So we didn't do good that day, but they did tell us about the Trillium grant as well. So that is due this upcoming week. So we are putting in an application for that for the arena, specifically the roof. Now, what I did want to outline for the grant was that it basically boiled down to us from the ministry that the wayfinding plan and that line of thinking and the approach was really I'll say a home run alignment with their priorities. It stemmed from the same ministry. The FICE program, or First Impressions tour, is with the ministry as well. So going through that and following the process makes the application look really good. Noted in there that we were kind of running out of time and really wanted to get into intake 2. So that's kind of why this is coming at a bit of an after the fact, but want to let you know that we applied for wayfinding, and I don't think that impedes your ability in one way or another to make any changes or suggestions about the wayfinding signage plan. So we've outlined our approach to the grant. The signage plan is quite extensive. It's across the whole of West Perth, and we had some direction from the Economic Development Committee to kind of maybe focus on the big stuff, the stuff that when people from Park Hill came, that they were kind of missing, how to get to the arena, that there's a zoo where the downtown is, those types of things, those key signages. And then we're also looking at really focusing on just some beautification in kind of our other settlement areas for now, with getting some kind of light decorations into Dublin and into Moncton. And we've had some requests coming through for Moncton lights for some time now. And then the Dublin lights can get repurposed, the existing lights can get repurposed into Mitchell, and we can get a little longer use out of, I'll say, the snowflakes in Mitchell for now until we're ready to maybe go with phase 2 of the signage or beautification plan. So that's kind of the plan, and I'll pause now if there's any questions or comments on either the grant application or the plan for signage.
Thanks, Dan. Questions? I was a little hesitant about the lights, and Dan would tell you that, and he told me to talk to Adam about the lights, so I did. And I guess like they're LED lights, and you know what we have in Mitchell and Dublin, but I guess they're very temperamental, and they really don't stand up to our winters extremely well. So this is kind of a compromise. I think if we take the signs from Dublin, we'll have a supply to use to repair the ones from Mitchell, and that'll get us by for a few years. But that's kind of the story behind the story. Question? Okay, Councillor Foster.
For the gateway signs, it shows the ones for Mitchell. Would they be replacing the Howie Moran signs then?
We would have no plans to do that. I think when the time comes that I know the signs were just refurbished for 150. I think the plan's there when the time comes. If we want to look at those signs or change those signs, it's nothing that we're going to look at anytime soon.
Anybody else? I think everybody has probably had some comments about the existing signs that we have now, and the comment that I've heard many times is that they're too small and they're up too high, you know, and even if they were a little lower, they might have been a little more visible, but they're just the lettering is not really eye-catching if you're looking for something. So there should be an improvement for that. If there is no further questions on that, we do have a recommendation here then that the municipality of West Perth approves the wayfinding sign design and locations path. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Foster, Councillor Fournier. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item then, also from the CAO, is the arena update. And Dan, I'll let you have the floor again.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, as His Worship indicated, just kind of an information report on the arena, where we're at, what we're doing, where we're going, that type of thing. So as of right now, we've entered into we're working through our contract with Simcoe Refrigeration, and that was procured through our group buying. Specifically, it'll be through Canoe on that one, LAS. We've entered into kind of a project development agreement at this time. So what that does is that authorizes them some funds while we work through kind of the larger contract negotiation, so they can get long lead items and start the engineering drawings on the new room. So those are already ordered. We were told at our meeting that they had ordered the long lead items, and the drawings are already taking place. At this point, we've kind of outlined what we have quotes for today, what we have some firm numbers for today. So as indicated there, the slabs and dashers are coming in at 1.6, and we were budgeted at 2.2. Refrigeration equipment coming in at 1.1. Budgeted at 1.1 as well, and the room is coming in over. We had budgeted 600, quotes coming in at 800 overall, though that's right now putting us under budget by approximately $340,000. So we've outlined the rest of the budget there that we're still kind of finalizing with Simcoe through some change orders, and that's what's taking some time on the contract. Specifically for the roof aspect of it, that is the project that we will be putting forward for the Trillium grant as well. So that's up to $200,000 there. We're hoping to be successful on that front. We've got the existing room renovation, so we won't get final quote on that until after we've kind of taken everything out of that room and really see what we're kind of working with there. So there might be some further amendments, or it just might not happen. Dehumidifiers, we are doing currently, we have 2 electrical dehumidifiers in the building right now. They don't work very well. We are doing electrical load testing right now to see what kind of load, if we can replace them or switch over to a gas unit. A gas unit will work, it's kind of industry standard and will work exponentially better. And we would only need 1 unit. I don't think there'll be any savings on that front though, as the gas units come with a higher upfront cost than the electric units, but we're still waiting on that. On the AODA improvement side, so we've had some meetings in-house, specifically with Matt Burns, our chief building official, as well as Director Larson. Has gone to Joint Accessibility Committee with kind of the recommendations out of our BCA, or our facility assessment, to kind of review that with the committee. We were hoping to get a little bit more feedback from the committee about what we maybe should focus on and really nail down, but they just endorsed the whole report. So we're still trying to scope that side a little bit. From a compliance side, really that's what we're after, is making sure that we're in compliance with the standards of today, but not with it not being a full facility renovation. It doesn't actually trigger us to follow the building code of today. So still a little leeway there. I think what you can plan on is maybe some complete rails in the aisles. There's some breaks in the handrails there. Some tactile indicators on any of the ramps or stairs, basically like grade changes for anyone with low visibility. Maybe some improvements on the barrier-free washroom, some handrail placements and door openers or something to that effect. But we're still kind of working on that one. And then, as indicated, some of the other capital projects there, the stand heaters, the shower upgrades, event tables and chairs, and then our contingency budget. So those are kind of all the budgeted items that are still kind of floating around. But I think what's key is that anything really that's time sensitive or could delay really the opening or use of the facility is already quoted for, and we have a timeline in place. And as I said, long lead items are open. So just wanted to also just recall for council that we've got the feasibility study for the second ice pad or field house budgeted for this year, and we're also well underway on the development of a sponsorship program, including pricing evaluations, and that was through our operations budget. That wasn't a capital project. Kind of included our timelines there. So we are looking here, the ice is coming out on the 31st of March. We are looking to get that room started right away. The new refrigeration room on April 13th. We've got a ring pour started for June 18th, 4 days for that, and then curing. You can see we're starting the system up quite early. So when you're pouring a new slab, you really want to cool that slab very slowly over a long period of time. You don't want to shock it. And then, as indicated here, we should be set to be making ice for August 25th, but obviously we have the fair, so we've got some room there and a couple days or some time if something needs to get pushed. So that is the estimate as of right now. So if there's any specific questions about it or anything I missed, I'm sorry, try to go through that report and happy to answer them or talk further about something.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Questions? Councillor Duck?
Thanks. I actually had a couple questions, or a couple people this weekend, past couple weeks, I should say, mentioned about the connectivity in the rink, accessing the internet and then just being able to use their phones, say, while they're watching a child's practice or something like that along those lines. I was just wondering if there's anything we could possibly do while we're doing this to see if we can maybe broaden the access to other, the cellular networks while we're doing this. I know it's an old building and bricks and steel don't really work well with that, but if there's something that we could potentially look at doing that's low cost and not going to significantly put a dent in the budget that people could perhaps, whether it's an internet, I can't think of the word, but when they move the internet so you can, or something like that. Anyway, just that it was mentioned to me twice, ironically, by two different people at different times. And I just thought, oh, okay, I'll bring it up. And yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
I think we can look, I would say if it comes up again, maybe ask if they are on the guest Wi-Fi. I know the cell phone signal is poor in there, but I've always been okay with the guest Wi-Fi, but maybe it's more signage on that front. We do have costs for cell phone boosters or rough estimates because we were looking at them in this building because we had that issue as well. So it's something certainly we can review at the end of the budget and see where we land on that front.
Other questions? Phil?
Thanks, Walter, to the mayor. We were talking about a noise feasibility study for the north end for those residents. Did we ever get anything back for that new addition that we're going to put on?
So we've retained Grid Engineering to conduct that. And sorry, I probably should disclose some of the public outreach efforts coming. So we've been sending them the equipment specs, and they've been kind of looking at that through their system, through their lenses and engineering model. And ultimately, at this point, anything they can do is just recommendations from a desktop. So once everything is kind of said and done, they'll be out there at the end again reviewing. But certainly want to try and find ways to get the noise up instead of out. So like up and bouncing back. But yeah, it's certainly something we're aware of. We are looking at basically either taking this report in its entirety or drafting some sort of letter and mailing it to kind of the residents that would be most impacted by this project. So just to make sure that they know that the construction is happening, and B, they just have all the information and they're not getting any hearsay or anything like that. So that is our plan to do it this week. We were just waiting to see tonight if council brought anything forward that we might want to add or change in the report as we're providing that notice to those residents there.
Any other questions? We also did a survey on the property, and if you're around there, you'll probably see the stakes up. We've identified where our property line is now, so we weren't just too sure, I think, before, but we do know now where it is, so it's always good to know. If there's no further questions, then we do have a recommendation here then that the Council of Municipality of West Perth receives the West Perth Mitchell Arena and Community Center update report for information. Have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Phelps, Councillor Duck. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Interesting comment that we heard today. The original arena, which includes the arena and the community center, the original bill for that was just a shade over 600,000. But that was a number of years ago, like 52 years ago or whatever it is. So it's increased considerably, but that's par for anything, whether it's arenas or bridges or whatever, but that's how much of an increase they've gone up over that time. So, yeah. Okay, moving on. Correspondence, I just included the letter from Hydro One, just for your information, in case somebody asks you. Hydro was in there and they're screwing around with my hydrometer, that they're going to replace them all in West Perth, I think, in the rural areas. So that was really the main correspondence there. The other one is, I guess we're going to deal with that one separately. So we'll just deal with the Hydro one for now. The recommendation is that West Perth accept the correspondence as information. So moved by Councillor Duck, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And then there's the letter from the Kin Club of Mitchell with regards to the rubber ducky race on May the 2nd. And that's kind of a standard yearly event. And the recommendation that we have for that is that the municipality of West Perth approves the request from the Kin Club of Mitchell to hold a rubber ducky race on May the 2nd, 2026 at the Thames River Bridge on Huron Road, subject to the terms and conditions of the lottery licenses issued by the municipality. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Chessel, Councillor Phelps. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right. I don't think there's any further council reports. We do have a number of bylaws. I believe there's 3 here. The first one is bylaw 3 to provide for drainage works on the 12th concession municipal drain. The second one is bylaw 4 to provide for drainage works in West Perth in the county of Perth for the Weir municipal drain. And bylaw 21 is a bylaw to provide for drainage works on the Seabock B municipal drain enclosure that we dealt with tonight. So we have a couple recommendations here that Council Municipality of West Perth give first and second reading to bylaw number 21, the second day of March 2026. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Foster, Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And the second recommendation is that the Council Municipality of West Perth give third and final reading to bylaw number 3, 2026, and bylaw 4, 2026, the second day of March. Mover and seconder, Councillor Harold, Councillor Phelps. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Number of events coming up. I guess the next one that involves us all, everybody here, would be the March 16th regular council meeting. The BIA annual general meeting is coming up March the 25th. And election candidate information is March the 25th as well. I think those are the main ones that you can kind of keep in mind. I'm not aware of any notices of motion. Is there any other business at this time? All right, we do have a closed session to deal with. And so the recommendation that we have is that the Council Municipality of West Perth proceed into closed session under section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act as amended at 8:02 p.m. to address matters related to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And the second one is litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality. So those are the 2 items. So motion to go into closed session at 8:02, moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Deputy Mayor Trinkowski. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So we'll We had a discussion in closed session, and coming out of the closed session, council discussed the minutes of the executive committee as well as litigation matter, and provided direction to staff with regards to the litigation. Basically takes us to the end of our council meeting. I think the next item that I have is the confirmatory bylaw. And bylaw number 22 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the municipality of West Perth be read a first and second time this second day of March. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Foster. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And then bylaw 22 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the municipality of West Perth be read a third time and finally passed. Moved by Councillor O'Donnell, seconded by Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And the final motion is that the council of the municipality of West Perth adjourn the meeting at 8:33. Mover and seconder for that, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Trankowski. Take my pick. Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you.